So the first thing we want to do right before we do a bridal makeup is have a trial. So during the trial of you and your client, that will be the time that you do a lot of investigating. So lots of things go into a bridal makeup, even though it's a very basic, pretty makeup. There's nothing too intricate or complex about a bridal makeup, but you do have to do a lot of investigating. So a few of the questions that you will have to ask is, let's say, the location of the wedding. Is this going to be a wedding that's outside in the hot sun? Is it going to be is it a winter wedding, a summer wedding? Is it a beach wedding? Is it in a church or a venue that's inside? All of these factors go into what kind of makeup you're going to be using on your client, on your bride. Time of day, so is she having a morning wedding, an afternoon wedding, or an evening wedding? That will determine how much drama goes into the bridal makeup. Also the colors, so what color flowers is she having? What's her decor of the actual venue? What color are her bridesmaids' dresses? Flowers, is she having a very formal wedding? Is everybody wearing formal clothing, long floor-length dresses? So all of these things go into, when you have to factor all of these things into the makeup. Another thing is, as far as photography, you want to choose colors and sheens and textures that are going to look right in photography. So her pictures are going to be around forever, so you want to pick and choose makeup and style that is not going to age with time. It's not going to look outdated 20, 30, 50 years from now. So that's as I go through the demonstration, we will factor in all of these. So first of all, this is my model Jessica, and I'm going to be doing the bridal makeup on her. So I've investigated about skin type. Her skin type is pretty normal, but I will go through things like dry skin types, oily skin types. This is very important also for the choices that you make throughout the makeup application. We will be using an airbrush foundation, and I'll explain why, but I'll do a traditional foundation coverage as well, so you have the option of both. But first of all, you want to do some prep work on the skin. So I've investigated, she has pretty normal skin, but let's say she's having a wedding that's at the beach or some sort of outdoor time, maybe picture taking is outside, so you don't want her to get super shiny or oily during that time. There might be some sweating if it's if it's outside at the beach, so you want to kind of take all of that into the equation. So I'm going to use on her a moisturizer and a primer. So I'm going to use this primer that is also a pore filler. Just makes the skin look very, very smooth, and it'll keep it really matte throughout the day. So I'm going to use that, and then a little bit of moisturizer. And I'll talk about the tools to use throughout the application. So with moisturizer and primer, I'm going to use kind of a flat brush just like this. It's like a foundation brush, more synthetic. So I'm going to add, I'm actually like to mix the two together, the moisturizer and primer. So I'm going to add that to Jessica's face. Starting at the forehead, I'm just going to work my way down. With this primer, I can feel her skin getting nice and tight, so I know that this is working and it's filling in any pores. Not that she really has any, but you will get clients that have large pores or wrinkles, fine lines, and you want to fill that in as much as you can just to make the makeup nice and flawless. Sometimes you'll have stubborn areas. I noticed Jessica does not have this, but a lot of times your clients will have some kind of dry or scaly skin area around the nose, sometimes on the chin. Just make sure that after your trial, during the trial, that you mention this to your bride so that she can work on that from the time of the trial to the actual wedding day. And you want them to do some good exfoliation. They're going to want their skin to be perfect on the wedding day. So anything that they can do ahead of time, facials, exfoliation, that kind of thing, waxing, needs to be done ahead of time. So if they're going to get their eyebrows waxed, that's another good point. Definitely not tell them not to do it like the day before, even 2 days before, but a few days before, because sometimes the irritation is still there, it's red. Sometimes the eyebrow lady does the wrong thing, and they can, I've seen clients that have burning, you know, being burned by their eyebrow lady. So you just have to make sure that that's all done. So I'm going to add now a little bit of eye cream. So I'm going to use my, just a little synthetic brush for this, which I will then use for concealer. So I'm going to have Jessica look up for me. Concealer always looks better when you have your eye cream applied as well. All right, so that was just a little synthetic brush like this. So the brushes that I'm using, I'm just kind of holding off to the side because I am going to reuse them. And then after this, Jessica already has on some, like a chapstick or a lip conditioner. That's very important that you do this at this stage of prep work, so that it gives them time to, you know, just get some moisture to them. Another thing is I've seen a lot of really dry chapped lips during trial times, and there's another opportunity to get across to your bride and your client that they should do some lip exfoliation ahead of time. They can just use one of those, there's sugar scrubs out there for lips these days, or just some bicarbonate of soda with their toothpaste is always good too. Okay, so she already has some on, but I'm just going to add a little bit of this lip primer, just so I can show you at the time of prep. This lip primer, I'll show you later on, but once you get it, it's like a waxy feel. It helps lip color to stay on longer, but it also stops any bleeding of the lip color. So there's our prep for right now. And then we're going to move on to foundation. I'm going to do a liquid foundation on Jessica first. Then I'm going to do the rest of the makeup, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you how to do the airbrush foundation. So I'm just going to color match her. I'm just going to come over here, and this will be when you will get into your color match time. And I'm going to use a foundation that is mattifying. Not too heavy. You don't want your bride to look super, super heavy in her face makeup. And you also want to look at the skin tone color. So I can see that Jessica has a little bit of more of a yellow tone. So a little bit more of a yellow tone to her skin. Now she does have some reddish areas, but I see more yellow than I see red. So I'm just going to use this color right here, so it has a little bit of almost like a beigey tone with a tad bit of pink in it. So I'm just going to do a color test here on her chin area right here. So you want to warm the skin up. You don't want to have her skin too yellow, but you also want it to kind of match up with the neck and the chest. So usually a lot of wedding dresses are sweetheart cut, or so there's a lot of chest area showing. So I think this color, if I step away just a little bit, is a good match for the rest of her body. We are going to add bronzers and powders and things too, and concealer. So you'll also be able to correct using those products too. So I'm just going to keep going with this color. I'm going to start at the forehead. You want to use foundation, and you want to kind of bring it down the direction of any facial hair that they have, which normally would grow kind of down. So I'm kind of coming down, and then here we'll kind of swoop across right here. Sometimes I would, first of all, do all the eye makeup before I do foundation. And the reason being because sometimes makeup, especially if I'm doing a little heavier, darker makeup, if I'm using any blacks, that kind of thing, because the makeup from the eyeshadow will fall. You'll have some fallout around right under the eye area. So what I'll do is I'm still going to carry on with the foundation. And then if we do get some fallout, I'll just kind of use a makeup wipe to remove that. So you can see this foundation is not super heavy. It does have good coverage though. We want to have good coverage, especially for the pictures, any flaws in skin tone, any hyperpigmentation, any broken capillaries, anything like that. We want to cover that up with the good foundation so that it's not seen in the pictures that she gets back later on. Just going to come on the other side and make sure that it's all blended down. You definitely don't want to see a line of foundation that's a different color to the rest of her body. And then I'm also bringing this down the neck just a little bit. Naturally, we don't get a lot of sun right here because our heads are right here on top. So you want to bring down any color and then use bronzing. Bronzing powders are really good for this too, which I'll show you later on. Some brides might want their skin to be a little bit more of have a dewy look, so in which case you would maybe use something mixed in with the foundation, something a little bit more like a cream that has an iridescence to it, pearly iridescence, or just something a little bit more sheer that kind of spreads out more, something. But I feel like for pictures and everything that you definitely need to have a good coverage on that. So now I'm going to move on to the concealer. So I want to correct her under eyes. She doesn't have really bad dark circles, but everybody needs a little bit of something. So I'm going to show you a couple of different things. So I have a couple of concealers here, and then I also have this, which is a highlighter. A highlighter, kind of bright. It's like a brightener for underneath the eye. And then the concealer I'm going to use, I want it to be a little, I'm using a mineral concealer so that it doesn't get super heavy under the eye, and it doesn't create, you know, it doesn't make the makeup settle into the fine lines. So what I'm going to do is just mix those two together, the concealer and the eye brightener. I'll have Jessica look up. So I'll do one side here, and then we'll look at the difference between the two sides. Always kind of come in here into this section right here, because that will get a lot of shadows in that area, so you want to correct that with the brightener. And what I'm doing is I'm just kind of bringing it out into where the foundation is. And just blending. And you can see that's a little bit more moisturized than the actual foundation part, which I really like. I like it to be nice and moisturized underneath the eye. So you can see the difference between the two. So I'm going to do this side now. You can always use your fingers to tap in the edges just to make sure that it's seamless. Obviously make sure your hands are nice and clean and moisturized and sanitized, so that this is your client. You've got to have good hygiene at all times. All right, so that's your basic foundation concealer with eye highlighter underneath the eye.